Good morning, afternoon, or evening if you're watching this on the replay. How are you today? I hope you're having a great morning so far. Welcome to another video exploring cognitive biases. Today, we're looking at the illusion of transparency. And no, it's not a magician's trick. It is indeed a cognitive bias, and a really common one that I would arguably say we all, certainly most of us, encounter and potentially even struggle with regularly. And as is the case with so many of these biases, the more aware you are of it, the more you can control from it. But just knowing about it and understanding it doesn't make it any less of a thing, doesn't make it any less real. Good morning, James Chisholm, #1 fan, first person in there today with the comments. So what is the illusion of transparency then? Well, it's quite simple. We overestimate our ability to understand and interpret what someone else is thinking and or feeling. Equally, another element to this is that we also overestimate the ability that other people have to interpret and understand the way that we're feeling and what we're thinking. So a really simple example of this that you will have most likely seen for yourself on Facebook at some point is when two people are having and in real life as well, of course, when two people are having a conversation, maybe even a bit of an argument, and one person says X, and the other person says B. And as an outsider, you can see that actually this person, what they meant was this, but the other person interprets it differently and argues against it. And actually you can see two people arguing against each other who both actually kind of believe the same thing. They agree, but they're misunderstanding or misinterpreting what the other person is saying because they're now projecting on their expectation of what that person's thinking, which may or may not actually be the reality. An example where you've probably experienced this but may not have noticed would be something as simple as when you trip up in public or spill a drink, for example, and suddenly you think, oh my God, everybody is watching me and they all think I'm an idiot. How embarrassing. And so in your mind, you believe you can perceive what these people are thinking and feeling. And sure, there's probably one or two people going, oh, what an idiot, dropped a glass or tripped up or whatever. But actually most people will either be thinking, ooh, I'm glad that wasn't me. That's a really common response. I'm glad that wasn't me. In fact, there's a whole word, a German word, Schadenfreude, all about happiness at the misfortune of others. We feel good when someone else has something go wrong because we feel grateful that it wasn't us. But that's a whole other thing, so we'll come back to that. But yes, Sarah says she's good at both of those things. I'm guessing she means tripping up and dropping glasses, right? So what we do is that we predict and project and we assume that we can mind read. We know what other people are thinking and feeling, and we imagine we're really good at interpreting that. And don't get me wrong, particularly when you spend time practicing that, working on that, when you have training to look for different cues and things that give it away, yes, there are lots of things that we can do. And I think also without that training, naturally on a subconscious level, we can be really good at picking up the subtleties of what other people are communicating intentionally or otherwise. But we don't always tune into that. And when we rely on that, when we assume that we're going to be right, that's when things can fall apart a little bit. And particularly when we find ourselves in a heightened emotional state, we tend to be less good at interpreting those things effectively. That makes sense, doesn't it? If we're in a heightened emotional state, for example, we're feeling embarrassed because we've just dropped a glass, or we feel fearful because of the social pressure, or whatever it may be, or we're upset or angry, or someone said something, we're angry at them, so we're trying to argue our point back. They try and explain they didn't quite mean what we interpreted, but we've already got into that angry state, so we're projecting what we expect and we misunderstand what they're communicating. Because the system one brain, the older part of the brain, the stuff that deals with fight or flight and all that jazz, that system one brain kind of takes over. And when you're really, if you like, being led by that system one brain, the logical, rational reasoning that comes with the system two brain just doesn't get a look in properly. So if you're in a heightened emotional state, this bias becomes even stronger. And so that's why in a state where you dropped a glass or tripped up and you feel embarrassed, you can suddenly imagine yourself to be this amazing mind reader that knows exactly what everyone else is thinking, and they're all thinking, what an idiot. Except the reality is they're just probably not. The other side of it is that we assume, so that's us assuming that we're good at reading other people's minds. We also assume that other people are good at reading ours. So we believe that we're more transparent than we really are. A great example of this is when you're having a conversation with a partner, and you say something that in your head sounded completely innocent, and you meant no offense by, and suddenly they fly off the handle. Now, this is a bit of a cheesy example, maybe, and kind of playing into different people may have different ideas around how spouses interact and stuff. So I'm not going down that route. It's just an example. There can be a million other things at play, but one of the things that may be at play there is that we assume our partner or the other person in a conversation understands how we intended that to come across. And because we assume that they get it, we can be really bad at recognizing where it went wrong and where they've misunderstood. Maybe our tone was a bit different. Maybe the words that we chose weren't so great. Maybe it played into a vulnerability of that individual, which is what, there's so many different things that can happen. But because we believe and assume and have this bias and tendency to reckon that, to have overconfidence in people's ability to see what we're really thinking and feeling, that compounds the situation so much more. Another example of this, or another thing to consider with this, is that if people aren't so good as we think they are at understanding what's going on inside us, in our minds, and what we're feeling and thinking, then all the more reason to make sure we communicate it. If you're feeling down about something, talk about it. We're really good at this, and I've been hugely guilty of this in the past, hugely guilty of being Mr. Nice Guy. And so I'm doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm bending over backwards to do these things for other people, partly because I do just love helping other people, sure. But you've often people find themselves in a situation where they've almost got an unwritten, unspoken contract with other people, where, well, if I do all of this and I've spent all day doing this and that for you, maybe you've spent all day cleaning the house and doing the housework and everything else, and your partner comes home, so you expect some recognition, and you expect to then be able to just sit down and chill. And then the partner comes home and instead is like, right, okay, so we need to do this, this, and this, and this, and this, and I need your help with that and the other. And you kind of go, whoa. Now, if at that moment you stop and communicate and say, yeah, okay, gotcha, but I'm tired, I've spent all day doing this, I just need to sit down and have a cup of tea first. Well, that's probably going to be absolutely fine, right? If it's not, you may have other things to look at in the wider picture of that context. But by not communicating it, by assuming that they must understand and they must know really, you can really turn a completely innocuous thing into actually a much bigger problem, especially if it's repeated over time. So that is the illusion of transparency. We believe that we're better at interpreting what other people are thinking and feeling, and we assume that they're going to be better at understanding us and what we're thinking and feeling. The key thing to take away from this is, now that you're aware of it, now you recognize what this illusion of transparency bias is all about, it basically means it's not all about you, right? What's going on in other people's heads, they don't know what you're thinking, and you don't know what they're thinking. So particularly when you're in a heightened emotional state and you think, oh my God, this is the end of the world, everyone's thinking this, take a moment to pause and question that. Chances are it's probably not true. Thanks everyone for tuning in. It's been great to have you here. I will be back again at the same time next week exploring another cognitive bias. Who knows which one it will be? And if you've enjoyed this, by all means check out all of my others. So if you head to my YouTube channel or my website, mindaffinity.co.uk, you can check out all of the previous videos and loads more other stuff as well, actually. So I'll see you there. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Hello, person that's just tuned in at the last second as I'm saying goodbye. Whoever you are, it's great to have you here. Thanks for tuning in, just for me to wave at you. So from me, goodbye. From Bananas, goodbye. And I'll catch you all next week. Cheers.